Welcome to the Simply Authentic podcast with Angie and Tanya, where we strive to inspire, empower, and challenge you to be your most authentic self. We'll talk a little real estate and interview entrepreneurs, business and community leaders, and hear inspiring stories. Welcome back to the Simply Authentic podcast. I'm Tanya Murfin.
And I'm Angie Mullings. And joining us today in studio, we have Mary Cromney, the Executive Director of Ozarks Greenway. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming.
You bet.
Absolutely.
We're excited.
So kick us off and tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Well, sure. I moved to Springfield, Missouri back in 2001. I came here for grad school. And though I didn't have plans to stay, I didn't have plans to leave either. And before I knew it, I had met somebody and was married, and we were able to purchase our first home in Roundtree. Yes, I feel like way back when. And it's been really great. And so, like I said, I came here for grad school and wrapped that up. And I worked for different nonprofits. Okay. And then in 2016, I had the opportunity to become a staff member at Ozark Greenways, which is another nonprofit. And our mission is to build a trail system that connects and enhances our community.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. So how long have you been in the position? You said you started at a lower level position, obviously, worked your way up. So.
Right. So our board had the foresight to bring me on in advance of becoming the executive director. Our previous executive director, Terry Whaley, had been there for 22 years. And so that's a lot of institutional knowledge to have in the head of one person. And so I was brought on, and it was a time, for me to get to know the organization, know the different roles, and I think it was an excellent fit. So when he retired in November of 2017, I was promoted to become the executive director, the third executive director for our organization. So
Awesome.
we have, a lot of longevity with, a small amount of folks. And so anyway, it's been a really great experience. And I mentioned we're a not-for-profit, so we do have a board of directors. So we currently have a 13-member board of directors right now. 10 of those are voting, 3 of those are ex officio, and those are key partners that we bring in. And typically they represent an entity or a governmental agency in which we have some sort of contract agreement. Because some folks may not realize that our regional trail system is very much a partnership.
Sure.
Yeah.
The city of Springfield, our entire metropolitan planning organization, our parks department, we're
utilities?
in city utilities. Okay. We're in Polk County, Christian County, of course, Greene County.
Right.
So it's super unique. But anyway, those 3 positions allow us to bring on those key partners in which we have some sort of contract for services. That way, it just continues to open up and keep those communication channels flowing. And then there's currently 4 of us on the staff team, myself and 3 others. So we're a small shop, but it's super fun. Yeah. Most days.
Most days.
So what does a day-to-day look like for you? What are you doing in this position day to day?
Sure. Typically, there's some sort of fundraising involved. Okay. So whether that may or may not be a cash transaction, right? So keeping in touch with our regular donors, creating relationships with potential new donors. And we also talk about fundraising in terms of friend raising as well, realizing that we are here as a nonprofit to meet the need within the community. So we have to continuously listen to folks in our community. So, I get to interact with the Greater Springfield Board of Realtors, and lots of other nonprofits across our region and even Southwest Missouri and even somewhat on the state level, just so that we can continue to make sure that we're fulfilling our mission for the greater good, is to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah. I think it is interesting, the partnerships that you have to develop, because if you are, and we can talk about this in a little more in depth, but part of your job is to work with landowners, right?
Correct.
Because there's a purchase, or there's something going on there where you have to purchase the right of way or whatever. Now I'm getting beyond my knowledge, so you take over, Mary.
You
and
are
tell us.
correct.
Yeah.
So also in addition to, raising those funds and making sure we're staying in touch with our community, our region, and our state, these trails do go on land, right?
sure.
And
Right.
they're public trails, and sometimes that land is publicly owned, whether it's like the city of Springfield or parks or city utilities, city of Ozark, and the list goes on.
Sure.
Or it might be privately held. And so it's a fine balance to work with private landowners.
Sure.
Even folks that love, enjoy, and appreciate the outdoors and utilize the trails, it's one thing to have a trail over there that you go to and utilize versus a trail that is maybe in your backyard.
Right.
Or your front yard or
Right.
your side yard.
Literally.
And
Yeah.
these trails have to go someplace, just like sidewalks have to go someplace,
Sure.
and streets have to go
Right.
someplace, and sewer lines,
Right.
right? So hopefully folks will start to see trails as a part of that vital public infrastructure that is needed for us to have a really robust community that provides an excellent quality of life for the residents, the folks that live here. And I think you guys are probably starting to see that more and more as folks are looking to purchase property or
Sure.
looking to relocate here. They want to know, of course, that they have a great job and great schools, but they also want to know that
What are we going to do?
Yeah, what are we going
in
to
our
do,
playtime.
right? They want to
Yeah.
know, is it a beautiful place? Am I
Yes.
going to feel good? Is our water clean? Is our air clean?
Right.
Is it easy to move about the community? Is it fun, right?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
quirky? Are there unique
Absolutely.
things to do? And so that's something that's just something that we have to constantly balance. Sometimes we do it really well. Sometimes we miss the mark. I think that can be said across all industries when we're looking at doing public infrastructure improvements. Sure. And so everything that we do is always from a comprehensive plan or a master plan or some sort of overarching plan that has been adopted by that community. So we're not out there going rogue.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Which it might feel that way to some folks if you're not familiar with the way in which your community adopts projects and moves through with projects.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
So yeah, we do. Ozark Greenways is unique in that Ozark Greenways has never had to purchase land or an easement for a public trail. And that's because we've been very fortunate and had the opportunity to work with landowners who wanted to donate land
Right.
or donate a conservation easement or a recreation easement. And then we've also been very fortunate that since we are working off of adopted plans, perhaps the city of Springfield will be doing a floodplain buyout, and maybe there's a segment of our trail that needs to go on that. Or perhaps the community is doing an easement. Maybe that easement's for sewer, right, or water or broadband or whatever it might be, or road. Is there a way in which to add another easement for the trail at that time? So definitely money has been spent to acquire this land, but it's typically coupled or leveraged with something else, which is another really unique way and approach that our community takes towards that. Which also leads to our trail system being quite fragmented and having some gaps.
Got it.
And so here in Springfield, residents spoke up during the Forward SGF comprehensive planning process and said, can we fill these gaps? Like, could we actually have a trail system where it just doesn't, you're on a trail and it abruptly ends, right? And then it's
Right.
like, oh, well, I guess I'll turn around,
go back.
which is
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But when we start to think about trails as ways to move people,
Right.
and to move people for our kiddos getting to school,
Yeah.
right? Going to work, going to church, going to see a neighbor, right? Going to hang out at a new
Right.
brewery
Yeah.
or someplace fun. Then it starts, I think, to make more and more sense that, like, hey, this trail gives me an option.
Yeah.
It would actually be quicker for me to just take a stroll down the trail than to get in my car,
Yeah.
drive to a parking lot, find a parking
Right.
spot, unload myself, So
Right.
anyway, I think it's just super exciting as we start to work to fill those gaps. And we've got some gaps that are hard. They're gaps for a reason. One of the trails up on the north side of town, the Fulbright Spring Greenway Trail, beautiful. And I think a lot of folks think of it as recreation. But let's keep in mind, we got a lot of folks that live up there, like in Ashcroft Estates or the new Canopy development. We've got a school along that trail alignment. We've got kiddos that live in those neighborhoods that need to get to that school. So we do have a gap currently. Just for example, this is one of our larger gaps. It's between Truman Elementary and Valley Watermill.
Okay.
It doesn't look that big on paper.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, can't you just draw that line? Oh, yes, I do wish I could just draw a line. And then have somebody come back and pave it for me.
Yeah, exactly.
But that one has about 15 to 16 landowners. Now, keep in mind, some of those are public. But then quite a few of them are private. And then we've got some really tough topography and terrain in there. Yeah, so those are all the things that are influencing why that gap might be there. And, but yeah, anyway. So it's like a giant puzzle all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. And some folks will say, would you just focus on that trail and finish it? And I'm like, well, yeah, we nudge, educate, advocate, tell our story here, and then we go over here and do it, and then maybe something will shake loose here, and then we're, so that's
True. It's all about timing and
it's all
of
about
those.
timing. So
Yeah.
we're constantly moving, listening, keeping up on plan developments, road improvements, bridge improvements, because then that's a great time to couple a trail project with one of those projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So you mentioned the Fulbright Trail, and one of the topics in the news a lot lately has been the Chadwick Flyer.
Oh, yes.
So, and there's quite a gap between those trails. And when I first started hearing about the Chadwick Flyer, and one of my friends said, yeah, it's going to connect in Ozark, and I live in Fremont Hills, so I get the best of Nixa and Ozark
You do.
there.
Yes.
So I'm thinking that's awesome. I can get to Springfield. I can go into Ozark because right now I got to get in my car to drive down there. So that's just one perspective. And I hadn't really pulled it up on the map to visualize it. So I think it's so important to actually see what your plan is to be able to conceptualize really what has to happen. And in this article, there were a lot of things talked about, but the bridge that has to go across 65, walking bridge, footbridge. So tell us about that project and how maybe that's been a different project than others you've done.
Sure. So all great questions. And the Chadwick Flyer Trail has been incredibly popular. It's very appealing to lots of folks for lots of different reasons. Whether you're an old railroad buff and you want to see that railroad history preserved, because Fremont Hills, I believe, used to be called Cassidy, and was a stop along the Chadwick Flyer train. Right? So we've got folks that are very interested in it for those reasons, folks that are interested in it for transportation, some for tourism, some for just because they love nature and they want to get out and they want to see our beautiful Ozarks. So I think it just really appeals to a wide array of folks for lots of different reasons. And a great place to see all of the plans that we work from is our website.
Yes.
And that
Ozark
website
Greenways.
Sorry.
No.
It's a really great website. And for those of you who are watching, just an example of what their website looks like. And it's interactive, and you can see, like you said before, these gaps look like they're like this
They just
big.
look so little.
Yeah. But I think I loved being on the website and being able to see what trails you are working on, because there's so many. And I think probably our listeners don't realize how many you are responsible for or working on or whatever. So.
Yeah, so we're in that unique position. I mentioned, it's very much a public-private partnership. So once we get it built, depending on the service area that trail is built in, then that respective entity takes on the ongoing management and maintenance of it. So if it's in the Springfield Greene County Park Board service area, then they take over the maintenance and management of it. If it's down in the City of Ozark takes care of it, right? So you get the drift. There's a few holdouts here and there. up at Fellows Lake with those new soft surface or unpaved trails, which was a partnership with City Utilities and Trail Spring, where we maintain and manage those trails, and that's new for us. Our Frisco Highline Trail, which is 35 miles between here and Bolivar, that's a trail that we actually own through that rail banking transaction process that was done almost 30 years ago. But back to the Chadwick Flyer, I think lots of folks have been aware of that old rail corridor. Keep in mind, in Christian County, essentially from the Christian County line down to Chadwick, Missouri, that's been abandoned now for some time. And so when a rail line is abandoned, that corridor returns to adjacent landowners.
Okay.
With a few exceptions. And if whichever company purchased it, if they did purchase it like outright, you might see where Burlington Northern still owns a few parcels throughout there. So I believe like in 2016, it had like a resurgence. I shouldn't say like, it had a resurgence. People started getting more interested, curious. And then actually in 2017, Ozarks Transportation Organization brought our Metropolitan Planning Organization, all those communities together, and they put together a regional trail plan. And the Chadwick Flyer Trail really rose to the top because of that regional connectivity. So the trail right now is focusing on the rail line from Sunshine Street here in Springfield, Missouri, down to the Ozark Community Center in Ozark.
Okay.
From the Christian County line south, we're having to reimagine what that alignment looks like.
Sure.
Utilizing the old rail corridors as inspiration, realizing we can't be just right on top of it,
Right.
Because there's farms there,
Yes.
right? There's buildings there. There's highways there, right? So it's an inspirational route. But in Greene County, that rail line is actually still active. And it's active from downtown Springfield, Missouri. And it used to be active all the way out to the power plant. But then City Utilities no longer needed those services.
Right.
So City Utilities owns from Kissick Avenue to just on the other side of the county line.
Okay.
That trail, that's going to become a trail, and we start construction on June 26th,
Yay.
which is Monday.
I know. I was going to say, hold on, that's next week.
I know that day seemed like so far away, and like I talk about, June 26th, they'll be breaking ground, and then it's like,
It's here.
wait a minute, it's here.
Yeah.
So Ozarks Transportation Organization is serving as the project manager for that. The land is still owned by City Utilities. With City Utilities, we do a license agreement for public trails on their property, which is still considered public property. And then the Parks Department will maintain it. So it's about 1.5 miles of trail.
Yeah.
Burlington Northern still owns from Kissick Avenue North all the way to downtown.
Okay.
But there are no customers south of Sunshine. So that's why we're focusing on that Sunshine to Kissick.
Got it.
Right?
Yes.
Kraft still uses it. They're a great business. They're a great employer for folks here in our
Yes.
region. So, we don't want to rock the boat there. Of course,
Right.
we're going to watch it and monitor it because wouldn't it be a dream to have this trail go all the way into downtown Springfield?
For sure.
Absolutely.
One day.
Yeah.
One day.
And we got plenty to do
That's
right
on
now.
your whiteboard over here.
We call those that. Some people say, let's just put that in the parking lot. We've got a bike rack.
Right.
I know it's our greenway, so we put it over there in the bike rack. So that's what's going on in Greene County. And then Christian County and the City of Ozark. City of Ozark applied for an economic development grant
Yeah.
to develop a tourism asset.
Yeah.
And so it was really rewarding for the Missouri Department of Economic Development to acknowledge that this Chadwick Flyer Trail is absolutely going to be something that tourists come in and see.
Yeah.
Absolutely, residents are going to love it,
Yeah.
use it every day, but folks are going to want to come in and see it. And when you look at the really unique Ozarks culture that it connects, to be able to visit the Ozark Mill and
Yeah.
Finley Farms,
Yeah.
and then to travel north, to go through Sweet Galloway Village, to go through, a robust part of what I would consider center Springfield. I mean, that's really cool. That's
is.
really unique.
Yeah.
And then 4x4, Brewing,
Yes.
they have a location in Galloway Village or near Galloway Village. I don't
Right.
off of the Galloway Creek Greenway Trail.
Yes.
And then they have one that's going to be very close to where the future Chadwick Flyer Trail is going to go.
Yeah. How cool
Right.
is that?
So I just think that's super cool. And 4x4, it's a brewery, but it's also become very much like a space for neighbors
Yeah.
Yes.
to hang out, right? And a social space, and which is so important now because neighbors
It
need to
is.
get to know each other again.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. And that kind of leads us into what do trails mean for community? And, I think from our perspective, we see buyers coming into this market that, yes, they may be coming for a job or they may be coming for school or whatever. But a lot of there's a demographic that really wants quality of place. They're looking for, as Tanya mentioned earlier, recreation. They want things to do. Cycling has become a bigger, I think, around Springfield than it ever has been. So I think that's a segment of our community that continues to grow. So what is your focus? What is Ozark Greenway's focus when it comes to community? Obviously, you want to be a good partner in that,
Sure.
but is there anything else you can speak to with regard to why trails are really important in terms of community building?
Well, we talk about our mission statement. We want to connect our communities by trails. And when we talk about communities, we always ask folks to think about the little C first, getting neighbors back out there on that trail together, interacting with one another, right?
Yeah.
Because when you smile and wave at somebody, that can be the start of breaking down barriers that can sometimes divide a community.
Communities, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Some people can rise to the occasion to be a jerk, but
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to be a jerk when you're
somebody's smiling at
when
you.
somebody's
Yeah.
smiling at you,
Yeah.
or you're passing by
Yeah.
on you passing each other on the trail. It's just like, oh yeah, and then maybe you see a deer, or you see a turkey, or you see a bald eagle, and then you say to this total stranger, "Oh my gosh, did you see that?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it helps us become familiar with one another again.
Yeah.
And then when we talk about that big C, it's connecting. Think about connecting our entire region, right? And so we know that trails are important for conservation reasons and for environmental reasons, for public health reasons. But we are seeing a growing desire from either business owners or folks relocating to the area and choosing to live here because of trails and the potential of our trail system, which I think is really important and interesting. Businesses I believe, are taking more interest now because, one, they know that happy and healthy employees are more productive employees.
True.
And that more and more businesses don't have enough people
Right.
to run their business. And when workforce, especially the movable workforce and a highly skilled workforce, can look at the entire United States, if not the world, right? Especially working remotely.
Right.
These types of things, I think, really start to matter. We were actually doing an open house for the Chadwick Flyer Trail down at the Ozark Community Center, and a young family was there, and they were relocating to the area. I don't know why, but they were looking at various areas, various communities, and they purchased a home next to the Chadwick Flyer Trail because they saw the overall plan. They knew it wasn't all built,
Yeah.
but they saw the plan and they wanted to be a part of that.
That's
So-
an awesome testimony,
Yes.
for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Absolutely.
their new mayor was there, so it was
Yeah.
just like this very unscripted, very organic
Yeah.
moment. Like, why'd you pick my town?
Right.
Oh, because of the trail.
Yeah.
And the river, right? The outdoors.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned one of the trails potentially, you said next to Craft, just as an example. So if I work at Craft and I can take my lunch break and walk out and get on a trail where it's safe to walk on my lunch break, that's such a great added benefit, I think, to have for your employees to be able to do that. I live a block and a half from a trail, and if I just had to walk in my neighborhood, I know I could probably talk myself out of walking.
Yes.
Because maybe I need the quiet. I need to be around nature. And, if I have to dodge every time somebody comes around a corner, it's not that comfortable for me.
It's not as relaxing.
It's not. But when I moved to where I am now and I'm a block and a half I'm on the trail all the time. And I will, because I enjoy it so much, I will get in my car and drive to Fulbright Springs.
To a new trail.
Yeah,
Right.
just to experience it, because it's such, and you mentioned maintenance, and I think all of our trails, I don't know that I've been on one that's not well maintained and clean and well kept. I don't see that. So,
The Springfield Greene County Park Board, I believe, has over 100 parks, like facilities in their system. Plus, I believe within their service area, there's about 70 miles of trail. We have 110 miles of trail down on the ground. So whether that's unpaved, paved, a converted rail, or a water trail. So we've got trails of all types, which I think is another, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal. It's just, we don't have just paved trails, right, that are in urban areas. We have all different types of trails in all different types of areas, which I think just makes it that much more robust and that much stronger. Yeah. And then you were mentioning, folks being able to go out on their lunch break or maybe even using the trail to get to work. And there's we've got a segment of the Ward Branch Greenway Trail back behind Cox Health Systems. They're on South National, and it goes under, and then it pops up at the CU substation and goes back around. And lots, I'll be out and about, and people say, "Oh yeah, I work at Cox," and what do you do? And I work at Greenways. Oh, every day on my lunch break, or and keep in mind their lunch breaks
I love that.
might be at 6 a.m.
right,
right. So anyway, they're like, on my break, that's where I'll go. Yeah. So it's good to just have that option, right? Because you feel good.
Yeah.
If you go outside and even just walk 100 yards to get to a bench to sit down for 5 minutes,
Clears your head.
it improves your mood. It really does. Even in Missouri, where it can be like 105 degrees outside and swarming mosquitoes, it still helps you shift your perspective, right? And be like, even if it's like, oh gosh, I got to go back inside, it's so hot, it still just mixes up your day. And then it's like, oh, but I'm so glad I got outside. Right? Very rarely do I encounter somebody that says, I went outside and it ruined my day.
Very rarely.
Very rarely. Absolutely. There's some, there's some exceptions to the norm, but just to be able to pop outside and, they've got these crazy geese running all over the place, which are annoying, but then also highly entertaining at times, right? And birds and all that stuff. So it's a nice diversion. Yeah,
for sure.
You talking about the real estate story of the people choosing to live in Ozark next to the trail. So we realtors like to promote our city for what we can appreciate about it, right? And having done this for 21 years, I've never once said, and you might punch me if you could reach me, Mary. I've never once said you should move here because of trails, but going to your website recently in the last week for the first time, then I learned how many trails there are here. I mean, if you had had a camera on me while I was looking at it, you would have seen a gasp, like, oh my gosh, I've never even heard of this trail, and where's this trail, and where's that trail? So if the 2,900 realtors that we work with could see what we have seen in the last week on this website and understand and see your map that's so easily downloaded on there and added to a buyer's or a seller's packet.
Absolutely.
Then how quickly could we become known as one of those cities or one of those areas and regions that has a trail like the Katy Trail? And I know the Rogers,
Northwest
Arkansas area, they're now known for their trails, and people will talk about, went to Arkansas over the weekend and took our bikes and rode the trails. So I would love for this to inspire all the people that don't know better, and I'm admittedly one of them, that we have a huge trail system here. And although they
Right.
don't all
Yeah.
connect yet,
The potential is
yes,
remarkable.
It is.
And, and when you think about what's going to help that piece of property, right? That parcel, how can you help that buyer, right? How can you help that seller? Because maybe the buyers wants to live that outdoor lifestyle, and that's important to them.
Right.
And, maybe the seller's wanting to appeal, maybe they're close to the healthcare system, but they're also close to the trail and park system, and they're also close to this unique area, right?
Right.
So I think it just helps everybody have a more positive experience. And we often encourage folks, and I've worked with realtors like yourself and others, if you have a piece of property that's near a trail, tag Ozark Greenways in it, because then if a potential buyer sees that tag and, oh, it's Ozark Greenways, and clicks it, and it goes to our Instagram or our Facebook page, where, every once in a while we have to post about a construction project or an improvement project, but we're also posting just really beautiful photos, right? And, whether it's a prairie in bloom, and so all the pollinators that are coming in, or a beautiful sunset over a bridge, that way that person, that family, that business can be like, oh, that's really beautiful, or, oh, this aligns with my values. I care about our outdoors. I want to be in our outdoors. I want to raise my kid in the outdoors. I think it can just really help Springfield and our entire region embrace our natural beauty. Because it really is beautiful
It's
here. And I
beautiful
get
here.
that, like, I met somebody one time who moved here. She was like, I do not like the outside. I do not like grass. And I was like, you are in the wrong place. And she was like, I know.
Yeah.
She's like, I get it. This isn't me. And
Right.
like, she wanted a more urban.
Yeah.
She's like, I need my concrete. And I was like, that's fine. But there are so many people now, and I think we learned that through COVID, that are realizing, like, hey, life's short.
Yeah.
I need to go outside and play.
And enjoy
Yeah.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay to play.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
You have permission to do that.
Yes.
And I think when you live in an area, you take it for granted. We take for granted that we have all these wonderful trails, and how far we've come in the last 20 years in terms of our trail system and everything. And we often overlook that really is one of our biggest assets to sell.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, our trails, our parks, and then even our rivers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and then when you look at Springfield, we have Fellows Lake on the north. We have Lake Springfield on the south. We have the James River, right, that goes down, and I realize we got kind of a dam, right, that we've got to hurdle, but that's being studied. Then we've got our beautiful Finley River, and then, Galloway Creek, Wilson's Creek, Fast Night Creek. These are all these lovely urban streams,
Yes.
and people since the beginning of time have been drawn to what? Water.
Water. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Water, shade.
Yeah.
So I just think that we have great people.
Yeah.
We have the great bones, right? Our communities have really great infrastructure, whether
Yes.
you're in Republic or Springfield, Ozark or Willard.
Right.
We live in an area that has really good infrastructure most days, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to get a pothole, but settle down.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
It'll be okay.
It's going to be okay. But I think we should be prouder of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I think we should celebrate how awesome Southwest Missouri is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't live here, you need to come buy a house.
That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Thanks for that plug.
Thank you, Mary. We didn't pay her for that. So, Mary, as we get ready to head into the fall season,
Yes.
is there anything in particular our listeners need to know that might be going on around the trails in the fall?
Sure. So this is actually our third annual Trailblazer Challenge. We kicked it off earlier back in May, and it goes through the end of September, where we encourage folks to go out and to try to find a sign, a Trailblazer sign. We've got 15 signs, and we let you know which trail. We don't let you know what segment, so there's a little back and forth sometimes. And we ask that you find 10 of them, and then you fill out a form, post a selfie. And let me tell you, it has been so fun to see all the selfies
yeah.
that are popping up of folks out. And a lot of the time, folks will email us and say, I had no idea, blank.
Yeah.
I had no idea there were these cool old silos along the Ward Branch. You know, I had no idea there was a mural along Fulbright. I had no idea that there was a creek at Lost Hill Park, right? So anyway, it's just, that's super rewarding. So anyway, that's going on through the end of September. And then we also have our annual party. It's called our fall party, and it's coming up. It'll also be in September. It's on Tuesday, September 19th.
Okay.
And so there's more information on our website, and that is that's our major annual fundraiser.
Okay.
Because, you know, we have different revenue streams from which we pull to fund our annual operating budget. And then we also do special fundraisers for any capital projects that we might be assisting with to do like a trail construction project. So yeah, that's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be here before you know
That's
it.
great. That's great.
For sure.
Well, I could talk about this all day.
Yeah, I
but
know. I guess we need to wrap it up.
I guess we do.
So at the end of each segment with our guests, we like to give you the opportunity to tell a good, bad, funny real estate story. Do you have one from your past?
I do actually
good.
have one, yeah, and it doesn't have anything to do with my current position. But I used to work at the downtown YMCA, and I had this really great group of women, all retired, probably anywhere from 50 to 85, and we did water aerobics. I was their fearless instructor every morning. So anyway, at that time in my life, I was pregnant. My husband and I were looking for a home because we had a little bungalow in Roundtree, and they took that as their personal mission to help my family and I find a new home. And they knew we wanted to stay in Roundtree, and one of the ladies goes, "Oh, I think there's a vacant house on my street." And one of my husband's uncles had always said, he said, "My one piece of real estate advice to you is buy the worst house on the best block."
Yeah.
So anyway, this was starting to resonate. So we would drive by, and somebody was trying to do, I think, a quick flip on it, and you could tell it had sat empty for almost a year. And one day, and nobody was calling me back. You know, I reached the assessor. It was held by this LLC in St. Louis, and so they were calling, I was calling, and then one day, one of them said, "Well, we're just going to stop." And I think there were probably 12 of us. And we just walked into this house, and this worker was just like, "What's happening?" And one of them said, "She wants to buy this house. What do we do next?" And so, you know,
Sometimes it takes a village.
yeah,
right?
and so it was a process,
Yeah.
and we were able to, you know, purchase it as is. And so when we did finally move in, it was one of those things. So we sold a house, bought a house, young couple,
Yes.
technically homeless, I think. All of our stuff was in a moving van for like, I think it was 6 hours. And I was like, what if this deal doesn't go through with this house that's been vacant for a year and it's scary, right? It was a little scary. So
Yeah.
it all worked out, and I was pregnant. I just remember walking in and the look on my dad's face, because we had a tidy brick bungalow before. This wasn't tidy or brick. And I just remember the look on his face, and it was raining cats and dogs, and it seemed like everything leaked, and he just went,
What have you done?
yeah, I mean, just the look on his face, and I was like, here we go. Yeah, and now it was 17 years this April that we've lived in that spot. Yeah.
That's a great story.
Love it.
Yeah, well, thanks. It definitely takes a village
It
sometimes.
does. It does.
Great story.
Thank
I
you.
love that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. This has been a great conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I do want to get in the name or the website. It's ozarkgreenways.org.
Yes.
If you want to go check that out, you should.
You should. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Authentic podcast. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Be sure to listen to us on your favorite podcasting app.